Hello all and welcome to Stingray Tom's Florida. Today is another Take 5 for Florida history and a wonderful cemetery story. Now before you turn off the video because you're not interested in cemeteries, give it a moment. This isn't a story about a typical cemetery. It's about a cemetery for horses, and it touches upon a remarkable part of Florida history, which also includes Florida's tourism history. So join me as I look at the history of Tartan Farms and its cemetery. Enjoy! For Florida, thoroughbred horse racing has been a significant tourist draw for nearly 100 years. With the development of tracks such as Hialeah Park in 1925 and Gulfstream Park in 1939, Southwest Florida emerged as an important part of the American horse racing scene. Tens of thousands of locals and vacationers would attend the races and provide the tracks and the state with significant revenue streams. If Florida's involvement in horse racing ended there, that would be an interesting story, but racetracks were just the beginning. In fact, Florida has made as much of an impact on horse racing as horse racing has made on Florida. Beginning in the mid-1940s, horse breeders began to set up operation around the small city of Ocala. The state of Kentucky was long considered the center of thoroughbred breeding in the U.S., but some breeders started to work among Florida's gently rolling hills, which look remarkably similar to those in the bluegrass state. Another similarity is the composition of those rolling hills. Both east central Kentucky and central Florida rest on top of ancient limestone deposits. The limestone is calcium carbonate, which fortifies both the grass and the water and gives a boost of calcium that provides thoroughbreds with strong bones, improved regulation of muscle contraction, and enhanced function of red blood cells, ideal for their racing careers. By the late 1950s, there were over 100 thoroughbred farms dotted around the city with a population of about 12,000. It wasn't long before Ocala's breeders produced horses that were champions in races throughout the U.S. This included Needles, winner of the Kentucky Derby and Belmont Stakes in 1956, and Carryback, winner of the Kentucky Derby and Preakness Stakes in 1961. Both were named Champion 3-Year-Old Colt, the award for the best overall 3-year-old male horse in a year. Several thoroughbred farms around Ocala saw large winnings. In fact, Carryback was only the fourth horse in the U.S. to earn over $1 million in prize money. That money encouraged more farms and stables to be established, and Ocala became a center for horse breeding. As of 2021, the Ocala-Marion County Visitors and Convention Bureau states that there are 1,200 horse farms in the area, housing over 35,000 horses. Some 75 years after its start, Ocala continues to have a major impact on the industry. That's the reason why Ocala was officially named a horse capital of the world in 2007. One of the earlier and most successful breeding farms, located just southwest of downtown Ocala, was Tartan Farms. Established in 1959, the 320-acre facility was founded by William McKnight, the chairman of 3M. Over the years, Tartan produced around 100 stakes winners, including intentionally American Champion Sprint Horse in 1959, Dr. Fager, the American Horse of the Year in 1968, Ta Wee, American Champion Sprint Horse in 1969 and 1970, and Codex, winner of the Preakness Stakes in 1980. Unbridled also was bred at the farm in 1987. He would win both the Kentucky Derby and Breeders' Cup Classic in 1990. McKnight was a hands-off owner, apparently content to provide the money and allow his skilled staff to do the rest. Tartan's Hall of Fame trainer, John Nerid, would be the real boss. He was a trainer, president, and general manager for Tartan. When he retired from training in 1978, he continued his work at Tartan as manager of racing and breeding. While he worked with several of the previously mentioned horses, it was Dr. Fager that was his greatest success. The horse won 18 out of 22 races entered and became the only horse to win 4 championships in 1 year: Sprinter, Turf Horse, Handicap Horse, and Horse of the Year. By the way, Tartan Farm's official racing colors, worn on both jockey and horse, was a variation of the Wallace tartan, as can be seen here. It appears as if it was directly connected with 3M Scotch tape design, but I haven't been able to fully verify that. McKnight was the company's chairman, so it's certainly possible. These colors represented a thoroughbred farm that was ranked among America's top stables 21 out of 30 years. In 1974, McKnight's son-in-law, James Binger, would take over operations of Tartan, and he and his wife Virginia would inherit the farm when her father died in '78. Arguably more important to Tartan was its stable of brood mares rather than its race winners. The farm grew from 320 acres to 1,200, and there were over 100 mares and as many as 120 foals born every year, all with pedigrees listing highly important and valuable ancestors. In the world of thoroughbred breeding, who your sire and dam are is the most important thing until you start winning your own races. In Ocala, that's where the real money is: the auctions and sales of weanlings, yearlings, brood mares, and stallions. And ironically, it involves a certain amount of gambling, just like wagering on the horse races themselves. Only a couple miles to the north of the Tartan Farm's property sits the Ocala Breeders Sales Company, known as OBS. It's a major auction house that holds sales several times a year. Attending one of the OBS auctions sees horses being sold for as little as $10,000 all the way up into the millions, such as this one in 2016.
He not here, not me here, and not here, but the bands off. He made here, the first one there. Give a name. He not here, not me. He not the band, but the ball, but the bands off. He 900,000 million, not one. That band here, not one. He not two. He the band two. He the band one, not two. He made one here, not two. He the two down there. He the one band one. He the two. He the one two. He made one. He the two. He the band one. He the two. He the band.
Apologies for the quality of that video. The lighting was pretty bad. Breeders, such as Tartan, would consign their stock at such auctions, which, by the way, are open to anyone. I've spent the day at several, and don't worry about accidentally bidding. You have to be registered to do so. As can be seen by this brochure, published in 1966 by the Ocala, Marion County Chamber of Commerce, the area considered thoroughbred farms to be a tourist attraction, all the while nearby Silver Springs was at the peak of its popularity. As you can see, Tartan Farms is one of several farms that had visiting hours. Today this may seem unusual, but around the same time the Bush Brewery was offering tours of its plant in Tampa, U.S. Sugar was offering tours of its processing facility in Clewiston, and there were any number of citrus juicing companies offering tours throughout the state. Today, few if any thoroughbred farms welcome guests, but times have changed. Not surprisingly, Tartan Farms has changed as well. As of 2002, it was sold out of the family to Eugene and Laura Melnick, who changed its name to Winding Oaks Farms. At the time, it was one of the largest thoroughbred farms in the area. Unfortunately, the remarkable success that Tartan had didn't easily transfer over to Winding Oaks, and in 2014, the Melnicks retired from breeding and racing. Now let's take a closer look at a part of the Tartan Farms. Across from the stables that were once reserved for yearlings, there is a group of oaks with a small gazebo. It's on the highest point of Tartan's property, and in the 1960s, it's where Tartan created a memorial for their most beloved horses. Arranged in a semicircle are several graves with headstones. This is the Tartan Horse Cemetery. When Tartan became Winding Oaks, the new owners continued to keep the area up. There are 17 marked graves in the cemetery, and while other farms honor past thoroughbreds by burying their hearts and hooves, Tartan buried the entire horse. There was one exception. One of their treasured horses died elsewhere, and only the heart and hooves were returned home. It's an enchanting spot for any cemetery, The graves sit under the shade of graceful oak trees and are partially outlined with evergreen ground cover. They face out towards a broad slope that provides a view of several hundred acres of post and rail fenced land where thousands of horses grew up, played around, trained, and grew old. The markers tell an interesting story. There's a mixture of great race horses and valuable dams and sires, the moms and dads of successful kids. It's easy to look at the thoroughbreds as just names in a record book or on a business ledger. But for thousands of years, horses have been bred for intelligence as well as speed and strength. Most people in the business love their horses as much as anyone loves a pet cat or dog. While the words on the grave markers are all business, the simple fact that these are graves in a beautiful spot with a captivating view show that they were treasured animals, both financially and emotionally. The oldest grave is that of Dark Mirage, who died over 50 years ago in 1969, which means the tradition began with William and Maud McKnight. It continued with their daughter and son-in-law, and again with the transition from Tartan to Winding Oaks. The Melnicks buried both Pico Tenerife and Marley Vale in 2012, both horses which shared their names with places on the island of Barbados. As of 2021, the cemetery is still being cared for, though the property is very much in a state of flux. In 2019, Becky Thomas purchased 178 acres of the Winding Oaks, and a year later she purchased more of it, enough to bring her total up to 224 acres. On that, she plans to operate a thoroughbred training facility. The rest of the property waited until April of 2021 for its development plans to be approved. The Ocala City Council voted to use 20 of the 960 acres for a new elementary school, while the rest, over 700 acres, would be zoned for a housing development for nearly 10,000 people. This map, produced by the planning and design engineering firm Kinley Horn for the property owners and the city of Ocala, illustrates the plan. The best part of the council vote was likely the disposition of the horse cemetery and the former home of trainer John Nerid. Nerid died in 2015 at the age of 102, and the city council chose to include both his home and the cemetery within the 25% of property that was designated open space. This means that both will be protected, possibly in some sort of park and museum, though there's been no official word at this point. You can see the cemetery highlighted on this plan. While Tartan and Winding Oak farms are no longer in operation, thoroughbred breeding remains one of the area's most important industries. The Florida Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners Association says that Marion County has more horses than any other county in the U.S. The county is also the home of 35% of Florida's horses and 46% of the state's thoroughbreds. On the other hand, Ocala continues to grow in population like many of Florida's cities. Each year sees more residential and commercial development encroaching on Ocala's famous rolling hills, with the Winding Oaks property being just one of the most recent. There's a great deal of history in these horse farms, some of which have been in operation for more than 60 years. Their significant impact on horse racing means that today, Ocala continues to be the second largest thoroughbred breeding and training center in the country, as well as one of the most influential in the world. Horse racing continues to be a successful business, with regular races being offered in Florida, including at the historic Hialeah and Gulfstream parks. There seems to be a bright future for the industry in the area, and Ocala appears to be aware of the importance of saving its history. There's a lot of tourism history nearby, such as that at Silver Springs, one of the most important tourism locations in the entire country. Hopefully, the plans for the development of Winding Oaks will provide an avenue for the further exploration of Florida's equestrian history through the preservation of two of the area's most valuable historic sites. I look forward to following the project in the next few years to see what happens. Thank you once again for watching another of my videos. Please like it and subscribe to the channel to learn more about Florida's tourism history. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.